Hello, everyone. I'm Gregory Gottlieb. I'm chairman of the Airship Association, and we're coming to you live from the Airship Association, totally live for the very first time in our history. And so none of us are quite sure if this is working or what might happen whilst we're talking to you and sharing our ideas and thoughts with you over the next hour or two. This is, in fact, a preview event that is designed to test the technology, test our ability to go live and to do all of this for you, our members, and the wider public at large. And the floating ideas debates will start in earnest in May, in a few weeks' time. But today we have a panel with you. We have Dr. Giles Camplin, Alan Shrimpton, and Martin Hill. And I'm going to introduce each of them in turn. So Dr. Giles Camplin is a council member of long standing in the Airship Association. Giles is a historian who is also a member of the Airship Heritage Trust and the British Balloon and Airship Club. And there is his wife, Christine, behind him. Hello, Christine. There we go. It's live, folks. That's proof. So Giles has made a lifetime study of the ground handling of airships and was awarded his PhD for work in that area. Next, we have Alan Shrimpton. Alan is a council member of the Airship Association, an enthusiast for airships, and is the editor of our journal, Airship. And Alan is one of the hardest working members of council and is involved in lots of other things like the website and our electronic messages that we send to members every week or two, and is a very active member of our team. And last but not least is Martin Hill. Martin has been involved in model airships, has been a member of the Airship Association Council for many years, and is our council secretary. A vital task, writing minutes for meetings and recording all of the information that we have to submit to Companies House. So that is our panel today. And what I wanted to just do is explain in a little bit more detail what we're going to be doing today. We will be answering some questions from our audience, but in addition to that, we'll be talking to you about the Airship Association itself, what we are as an organization, what we do, and how we support the airship community, as well as our members who are partly in the community, partly enthusiasts from a very wide range of backgrounds. So now what I'm going to ask our director/producer to do, Dean Arnett, another one of our council members, whose company Aona Digital has made this live streaming possible, to run a film that some of you might have seen, which is a little bit about the Airship Association. Roughly 1 cubic meter of helium can lift 1 kilogram. And what that means is that once you've contained a large quantity of helium in the envelope of an airship, you are effectively getting free lift. And it's that concept of just floating freely through the air that leads people to the view that airships have a role to play. This group of members of parliament involved with the Parliamentary Aerospace League got together and said, you know, modern airplanes and helicopters have come on a long way. The airship has been left behind. We need to change that. We need to do something about it. And that the era of airships was not over. And the Airship Association, when it began, was very specifically looking at modern and future airships, not at the history, and have worked with airship companies and regulators and governments around the world to try and promote the science and art and understanding of airships. The Airship Association has always provided a public resource in terms of information about airships that is objective and clear and with sufficient technical background to have or to provide an understanding of the limitations, capabilities and advantages of airships. In addition, we have consistently published our quarterly journal, Airship, which publishes information about airship projects that are underway or are planned. And in addition to that, we hold conferences and conventions periodically, which we've held all over the world. And those provide an opportunity for engineers with an interest or an involvement with airships to come together and present the work that they've been doing. We're not an expensive organization to join, either as a private or a corporate member, much less expensive than most societies and associations that represent an industry, as we do. And we're all volunteers. So, if you haven't seen that film before, I hope it's given you some sort of idea of what the Airship Association is all about. I think some of the AI-generated imageries may cause some engineers concerns, but at the end of the day, what we're about is informing people what airships really are all about. And to start doing that in earnest, our first serious debate will be on May the 9th. The debate is entitled Airships, Facts and Fallacies, and the aim is, during that debate, to have an expert panel again and to discuss a lot of the misinformation, but also the true information out there about airships. And I'm going to ask the panelists in turn to tell me what they're most excited about with regard to this series of debates as we move forward. I'm going to start with Martin. Martin, what is it that you're looking forward to in these debates?
Well, I'm looking forward to some sort of honest discussions about some of the issues that surround airships and have done for many years, some of the fundamental issues and how they can be resolved. One doesn't want to appear negative for any of these, but there are certain problems, as we're all aware of, that need sort of solutions and maybe some outside of the box thinking. But I'm hoping that the sort of people will attract to these webinars will have some of those solutions, or they have plans for. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. Honest debate, no holes barred. Let's get into the nitty gritty of what we need to tackle to make them successful.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's great. Alan, how about you? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to surprising some people with some facts about what airships have already achieved. I think there's a massive hole in people's understandings of airship capability. And it's not just talking about the future, it's talking about some of the achievements like the Snowbird, which I talk about in the magazine, which have already happened. And it would be really nice to get those into the public dialogue.
Thank you very much, Alan. And Giles, how about you? Are you excited about this, or have you seen it all before?
Well, I've been a member of the Airship Association for more than 30 years, and I have seen quite a lot of cycles to things where you get a time of development, and then they all want you to sign non-disclosure agreements, and then they decide they want a lot of personnel. So then we are very useful. The Airship Association in the past has held conferences which have been really good for networking. And I think this has the potential to do the same sort of thing, and also to be a forum for getting rid of some of the old myths and misunderstandings that bedevil airships.
Thank you very much indeed, Giles. That's excellent. Well, for those of you who may be watching us who are not currently members of the Airship Association, let's all have a little bit of a discussion about the association itself. Now, it happens that everybody on the panel today is a member of council of the Airship Association. But perhaps it's important for me to explain that we're a non-profit or not-for-profit organization. We're all volunteers, and we do not have to have any detailed technical understanding or involvement in the airship industry to be members of council. We just need to be voted in by the members. And we do a rotation, so every few years we are re-elected to council, or not elected back to council if necessary, if someone's not been pulling their weight, but actually everybody has been. And so we have an annual general meeting every year at which council members are re-elected. And it's actually very easy and not expensive to become involved in the Airship Association. We do have a membership fee for our full members, but a much lower membership fee for our student members, our associate members. And we, from time to time, have offers available to become members for even less. Our corporate members, which comprise some of the companies actually engaged in airship manufacturing, design, and operation, also play an important role. So what is it that we do? Well, the Airship Association was involved in the development of transport airship requirements about 15 years ago. And I think, Giles, I believe you were involved in that, weren't you?
Yes, yes, I attended several meetings with various other people. We went with the then secretary of the association, and I went and attended a meeting in Rome. Yes, and the TAR was produced. It was initially quite a lot of work because it was based on fixed wing flight, and so there was a lot of stuff that was completely inappropriate, which we had to point out to them. But that's always the way with airships. We are always being asked to conform to regulations that don't really make much sense.
Thank you very much, Giles. One of the things I believe that I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about, Martin, is that category of our members who are really enthusiastic about model airships and airship regattas, because that's something we've been involved with for a long time. Can you speak a little bit about that, please?
Yes, that's very true. It's actually all sort of, I have to say, sort of centered around in Germany. And as members are well aware, we've had a number of conferences in Friedrichshafen and then recently in Frankfurt. So yes, there's a group of enthusiasts in Germany who I think every year have what they call a model airship regatta. So these are airships of maybe no more than, say, 2 meters length, possibly 3 meters. The sort of size of airship that can fit within like a school hall or a sport hall, etc. They're not really designed to fly outdoors, but certainly for indoors, they have these competitions where you basically fly in a sort of figure of 8, and there's a speed trial. And over the years, we've also tried to think about things like a cargo exchange challenge, for instance, which is one of the issues for full-size airships, of course. But the whole idea was to promote the idea of small-scale airships and introduce people to the ideas of airships and some of the issues around building them, flying them, operating them in an indoor environment. And also it's run to FAI rules, which is like a federation of aero modelers, from model planes, gliders, helicopters, etc. But there's a small division which is the airships, and so that a prize is given for the for 3 runs of a figure 8. We had one recently. I attended one actually in Friedrichshafen in the sort of end of October last year, and I hope that we can do a similar thing at our next convention. So basically, it's there to try to stimulate young people into getting involved in airships. And there's even a company that can provide kits, for instance. I think it's called Windwriter, and they provide kits so you can build these small ready-control airships. Or you, like me, you build your own from scratch.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. That's excellent news. Now, one of the things that we discovered through some research that Council did several years ago is that there are more than 40 universities around the world that teach aeronautical engineering and incorporate within their aeronautical engineering courses a lighter than air element. Now, one of the things that we're trying to encourage, and I'm going to ask Alan to speak a bit more about this later in a minute in connection with the journal, is giving students of airship design somewhere to enjoy publications of their work and to spread their work around the community more widely. Would you like to speak a little bit about the aims behind Airship as a journal, Alan, and the incorporation of academic papers in it, as well as other things.
Yes, happy to. Thanks, Giles. This has been a bit of a challenge for us because historically the Airship Journal has focused more on being an entertaining and informative read. And if we start to put too many detailed technical articles in, particularly research papers with piles of research and citations, I suspect that may not be what some, if not many, of our readers want to see in the magazine. So, as Gregory said, there's a tension there because academics need somewhere to publish. And if they're writing papers on airships and light and air advances, then it would be nice if we could get some of those into Airship. So we're talking about that at the moment. I think some of the solutions that we might come up with to try one or two technical papers and see what the feedback is. And we've done 2 of those already in recent editions of Airship. Or perhaps to put a summary in Airship, a sort of précis of the research that's going on, but a link to our website where people who really are interested in the research and the in-depth analysis can go and see the full paper and understand how that was put together. So lots of work ongoing there, but at the moment it's more inform rather than research.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just actually putting a comment on our LinkedIn page because some of you watching on Facebook may not be aware that we were also going to be streaming on LinkedIn, but unfortunately it's not doing so. So I'm encouraging our potential LinkedIn viewers to come and join us here on Facebook. Not sure if they have Facebook accounts, but I live in hope. So let's, I'll leave that for a moment, but let's have a think about what it is we're aiming to do here. I already referred to the fact that our proper first serious debate will happen in May. It's taking place on the 9th of May, and it's entitled Airship Facts and Fallacies. And we in Council have identified for the moment 10 topics that we're going to be covering, and we'll be publishing those topics as we get towards the 9th of May, by which time I'm very hopeful we'll be on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and maybe even on X, who knows. But the aim of that is to assemble a panel which will be slightly larger than this panel, with a few additional people on it, to comment on each of these 10 topics, and then invite questions and comments from our audience, as indeed we will later on today. But one other thing about the Airship Association that I think it's important to note is that although the 3 of us here today are based in the UK at the moment, I also am a resident of the UAE, but we are a global organization, and we have members in Canada, the US, India, Germany, France, South Africa, Finland, many other countries. And in fact, one of our council members who I'm hoping will be on the next panel, who is responsible for membership, will be able to answer questions on where we do have members. Obviously, we have to be GDPR compliant, and so we don't share members' details. But one of the things we do also have, and again, I'm going to ask Alan to talk about it in a little bit, is we have a website. Now, we've had a website for many years, since the early days of the internet. And actually, that was a problem because the coding used on our website was very old code using some completely out-of-date software. But what we have done recently under Alan's auspices, we have updated the software that we use to operate our website, and we are constantly striving to update it. And we have a vast amount of information about airships that we have behind the scenes, which is not yet all published on the website, but we aim to publish as much as we can. Some of it will be open to the public, anybody can go and have a look, and some of it will be behind a members password protected gateway, so that only members of the association will be able to access it. And so, Alan, do you want to talk a little bit about the website?
Yes, happy to. This is a new venture for us. We've moved our website to Wix, which is an internationally well-known hosting platform for websites. We've started with a kernel of good ideas. Who are the manufacturers? Who are the operators? What are the definitions of an airship? And a list of some of the books well, in fact, all of the books we've reviewed recently. You can go and see which books we recommend. We're in the process of adding a members page, which will only be open to members, as Gregory said, but that could be somewhere where we start to publish technical papers that we précis or introduce in the journal, but have the detailed technical content tucked away online. And we're also adding a shop into the website so that members, and indeed just casual browsers, can look at back editions of the Airship Journal and buy those through the website. Initially, that'll just be PDF copies, but we hope to set up a physical shop as well at some point. So there's lots of ideas to go in there, and you'll see that grow over the next year or two, particularly as we start to import some of the drawings and the other information and graphics from the old website, which are still relevant.
Thank you very much, Alan. That's good to know. Another thing that I think people watching might be interested in is the fact that the Airship Association has a close relationship with a number of other bodies. We've recently worked with the Royal Aeronautical Society to establish a Lighter Than Air working group, which is a joint working group between our two organizations. We are rather smaller than the Royal Aeronautical Society, and we are not considered an academic organization yet at this point. But what we do contribute is a lot of background information and understanding of airships that may not be readily available within the Royal Aeronautical Society. So we're all very excited about that. But it's not just them. We also have a close relationship with the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and currently the Lighter Than Air Systems Technical Committee of the AIAA, chaired by Mike Connors, is one of the organizations that we look to and work with on a regular basis. And several members of the Airship Association are also members of the AIAA and of that technical committee. But it doesn't stop there. We have a relationship with the Air League. We have a relationship with the Royal Institute of Navigation, because these are all bodies that have relevance to airships. In addition, the Naval Airship Association, which is an American organization that looks at the history of military airships in the US and elsewhere, and also, last but not least, the Airship Heritage Trust. Giles, could I ask you to talk a little bit about the Airship Heritage Trust and how it differs from the Airship Association, and also some of those other organizations that I mentioned?
Yes, right. The Airship Heritage Trust was based at Cardington. It came from, it was really founded by the families of the victims of the R101. And it was originally called FOCAS, the Friends of Cardington Airship Station. And then it sort of broadened its scope and decided that it would support knowledge, they keep alive the knowledge of all the airships of the past, and not just limit it to the airships at Cardington. It's actually a registered charity, and they have had various organizations and meetings. They've got their AGM is a Zoom meeting that's coming up fairly soon, and members of the Airship Heritage Trust will be invited to participate in the annual general meeting. They've had lots of events and things in the past, and they've got a big amount of stored history. They had a large collection of artifacts which were moved down to the Royal Naval Air Service down at Yeovilton, and they've been accessioned into the national collection. So a lot of those things can be viewed if you make an appointment, and they also have a small office up near Nottingham, which again has a lot of material if people are interested in doing research. But the main part of it really is the website, which is at airshipsonline.com, and our webmaster Alistair, who's also the chairman, has collected an amazing amount of material there. And I am the editor of the journal, which is called Dirigible. And I produce 3 copies a year, and there's an archive of past dirigibles on the website. And the Airship Heritage Trust is keen to be involved in future conferences and things with the Airship Association.
Thank you very much, Giles. Martin, one of the things that we haven't really touched on in any detail is the conventions and conferences that we've held in the past and some of the events that we have planned in the future. I'm going to ask you to talk about the past, and if you could just run through some of the places where we've had conferences and conventions and the sorts of things that have been involved.
Well, I mentioned before Friedrichshafen, we've been there several times, and I think one of the pivotal conferences we had in 2000, the sort of centenary of the first Zeppelin flight, and that was an incredible event. I think we all had a great view of the Zeppelin NT, the prototype Zeppelin NT, and there were several other airships flying over Lake Constance. If you remember, it was one of the main events in my interest in airships over the years. And of course, in those days, we had Cargo Lifter giving many presentations, and so many other companies. I can't remember them all now. That was a sort of full-on event, and if you could say it's probably the pivotal event of the Airship Association's conventions over the years. But we've also had events in UK, Bedfordshire, in Kent, in central London, etc. And the sort of even being ability to go around and look at the sheds at Cardington and look at what it originally Airship Industries and then ATD GG and look at sort of development work that was going on there. So we've had so many of these conventions over the years, and we tried to publish, of course, at the end of that in the journal certain papers, or you can actually purchase these online as well, this information. But it's normally a 2-day event, probably about 3 or 4, maybe 4 sessions in the morning, 4 sessions in the afternoon, a midday meal, and then we will have a sort of special meal at the end and a special speaker, a dinner if you like, in a more relaxed atmosphere, and basically it's a great way of networking with those in the industry, and also in from the modeling world, which I'm involved in, because as I said before, we tend to have a regatta as well. And I was hoping at the next event in the UK that we could hold an outdoor airship regatta, and that's something we did sort of organise, but of course in the recent past, COVID stepped in and we had to cancel one of the conventions. So yes, it's a great way of networking, and a great way of sometimes seeing a full-size airship. I remember once flying in the Lightship from Cardington, which I'd never done before. So it is a great opportunity to get really close up to the real world, if you like, of airships, and meet some amazing people.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. That's a really good summary. I think from a sort of public perspective, to put some of what we do in context at our conventions, we generally attract in the order of 100, 120 people, maybe as few as 80. But it's not the size of our conferences and conventions that make them attractive. It's the quality of the people who attend. We generally have representatives from most of the companies engaged in developing airships, some of whom are corporate members, but not all. And we have guest speakers from really relevant parts of our community and from outside our community, from our supply chain, for example. And so these events are popular, and we're trying to do more of them, make them more interesting. So this year in October, we're organizing an event jointly with a new lobbying organization in Canada called CanHav, which is promoting the use of airships in the far north of Canada for logistics. And so we're going to be all trotting off to the capital of Canada in October Ottawa in order to mingle with Canadian parliamentarians who we are hoping will be able to influence the government view of what airships have to offer in the north of Canada. The other thing that we have started to organize, now that we have instituted what we call gold membership, which is a higher category of membership than ordinary members, is an annual lunch. Originally, we were going to hold it as a dinner, but we all concluded that having a lunch was a much more user-friendly approach, not just because our average age is perhaps a little higher than it should be, but because lunch gives you more time to network after the event. And we had an amazing talk, which I'm going to ask Alan to talk a little bit about in a minute, at our last lunch, which was last year. That was the first one. And we're very much hoping to attract a very interesting speaker to our next lunch, which I think we agreed was going to be in September. So, Alan, do you want to talk a little bit about Christine and her talk and what we're hoping to see at these events coming up in the future?
Happy to. Thank you, Gregory. So, at the last event at Manicomio's Italian restaurant in Chelsea, we were looking for a speaker who was definitely engaged with the airship community, but not part of the active development, i.e. a manufacturer or an operator. So we're trying to get in some interesting conversation around the periphery of the light and air debate. Professor Christine Gomenginger works for the National Oceanographic Centre in Southampton. And she and her team are looking to gather lots of data from the North Atlantic about a potential climate tipping point, which could be very serious for North America and Europe if one should happen. And she's decided that an airship would be the best way to gather that data. It needs to be done at relatively low altitude, so satellite is out of the question. It needs to be in the weather, so it's got to fly in weather. And it needs long endurance. It's got to be out there for days. So conventional aircraft and drones just can't hack that. An airship would seem to be ideally suited, and through us, we've put her in contact with a number of companies who either have or are building and offering airships for different solutions to see if we can find one for her. More generally, talking about the lunches themselves, we had some good feedback from this year's attendees that whilst Manicomio's was a delightful venue, and it really was, the food was excellent, it was also just a smidge on the expensive side with a very expensive wine list. So we'll be looking for a venue for this year's lunch that still has the private dining room, but perhaps a little bit more manageable prices, and also one where we can carry on into the evening if the networking requires it, which it certainly did in Chelsea. Back to you, Gregory.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Alan. That's excellent. Before we talk in a little bit more depth about what's going to happen on the 9th of May, I just wanted to mention some of the people who are listening in whilst we're broadcasting. I note from Facebook that we have Toby Page listening. And Toby is a key person in our industry. One of our friendly companies that has been a sponsor of events going back for well over a decade is Skyship Services, Inc., one of the largest operators of airships in the world, operating skyships and lightships for commercial tasks and for government tasks. Skyship Services reached a tentative agreement with the Airship Association last year to offer our members an opportunity to spend a day or two as a supernumerary ground crew member on a real commercial airship operation. Although we've been talking about this for about a year, this is still an aspiration that we have. There has just not yet been a suitable opportunity to make it happen. But I wonder, Toby, if you have any thoughts. We can't bring you into the live, but if you'd like to type any comments, we can read about them from Facebook and share them with everybody else who's listening. But we're all very much looking forward to being able to make that happen. And I very much hope you're still listening, Toby, so that you might be able to respond to this comment. But whilst you're catching up with putting any comments into the chat on Facebook that you wish to. I will mention again to any of you who've joined us on Facebook, having been trying to join us on LinkedIn, we're very sorry that you weren't able to join on LinkedIn. We are sure that we will sort it out for next time on the 9th of May, when we have the first proper debate. But thank you for coming and joining us on Facebook. And if you are watching this on LinkedIn, we will have put the recording of this in after the event. So although we're not live, you will have seen that we were live when we were actually doing this. So thank you very much for persevering. Let's talk a bit more about the 9th. Alan, I'm going to come back to you. If you'd like to just talk about some of the topics that we're looking to raise, and I'll come to Martin and Giles after you. So if you talk about 2 or 3 of them, and then Martin, you talk about 2 or 3, and then Giles, if you can remember any of the rest of them, 2 or 3 as well, that would be great. So Alan, over to you.
I'm just popping up the list, 1 second. Oh no, that's too old an edition. So on the 9th, we want to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions around airships, and we will debunk those. So a favourite one of mine, for example, is that airships can't operate in bad weather. And we will be talking about things like the Snow Goose, which operated inside the Arctic Circle for 4 days. And we'll be talking about Operation Whole Gale in the 1950s, which managed to provide a barrier patrol of airships for a huge number of days, 88% availability in some of the worst Atlantic storms we've seen. So that's the kind of thing we want to do with the debates, and there are lots of other topics as well. Isn't hydrogen dangerous? And do we need better control for airships because they're a bit flimsy? And so on and so forth. So it'll be an opportunity to get into a debate about all of those myths and misconceptions and debunk them.
Thank you very much, Alan. Martin, can you remember any of the topics? We haven't prepared for this. That's why we're doing it live, to catch everybody out. Giles, you've got lots of time to think of your topics. You can make them up, because we will discuss anything on the 9th of May. Go for it.
I think, if I'm right, rather than any are they useful or not, or any use, I think was one of the topics. So I think it's important to people who don't know too much about airships about what they can and can't do, and what the potential markets are for airships. As you said, Gregory, the next conference should be in Canada, and there are particular problems which are quite unique, I think, compared to anywhere else in the world for transporting something from A to B, because they have roads that only last 3 months of the year in the winter, and the rest of the time it's sort of like a mushy sort of it's impossible to drive across them for obviously lorries to transport goods. So this is an area where I think there is a potential market for airships, and it's but it may not be the size that people expect it to be, but I think it's definitely worth investigating, and it's a great that we're having that next conference in Canada, and we'll learn a lot more about the issues that Canada faces, and I suppose you could say Alaska, and maybe you could say even the Soviet Union, anywhere where there's this particular difficulty of transporting things to these remote regions. So that's an area which I'd hope there'll be some good questions to talk about. What markets, and obviously there's lots of other markets to think about for airships in the surveillance world, for instance, which we've had at our conventions in the past. So that's an area where I'd hope there's lively debate about what the size of that market is, and how it can actually be effectively served by an airship, and what sort of type of airship is the most suitable.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. You did age yourself there a little bit when you referred to the Soviet Union. Mr. Putin might be very happy that you refer to it still as the Soviet Union. The rest of us, perhaps not so much. So, Giles, you have the advantage that on our little private team chat where we're chatting with each other, our producer director, Dean, has kindly put a list of the topics up. So do you want to zip through some more of them?
Yes, certainly. Yes, okay. So I'll read you out a few, starting with the fact that it's popularly believed that airships are dangerous because they catch fire. And there have been some disasters in the past. But the thing is that the disasters have always been hugely publicized. They've always hit the headlines in the media of the day. And so everybody's heard of the disasters, whereas the great successes have always gone unrecorded, largely because many of them have been military secrets. So nobody really knows about the airship that flew for 11 days without refueling, for instance. And then there's other stuff like the helium and hydrogen, the debate between the two. And now, of course, helium is being restricted in the Gulf. And where is it coming from? And then airships are slow. I think Martin's mentioned that. They're weather dependent. They're an old technology. And all of these are things that we can show are wrong, that there's misinformation. They're useless. What can you use them for? Well, history's shown that they can actually do amazing work, air sea rescue, for instance. And patrolling the oceans, anti-piracy work, fisheries protection, anti-smuggling, all sorts of work. They've absolutely shown in 2 world wars that they were perfect for doing that sort of work. And that's all got forgotten. Then are they really green? Now there's a whole lot of new technologies coming on with solar panels. You can have electric motors and things like that. And that's another area that intrigues me, is that there in the history, we've got 250 odd years of airship history since the first one was attempted to be built. And it's very interesting looking back that you see things like in the very first attempt in 1784, they didn't have any means of propelling it. And so they came up with a rather unique idea of connecting umbrellas together and working them like duck's feet. So you push them forward, closed them, pulled them back open, and not surprisingly, it didn't work. But the thing is that they had to really wait until 100 years for the invention of an engine, until the engines were small enough and robust enough to fly. And so there may well be things in the future that we haven't yet thought of that would be useful for airships. So there's a lot of technology that's going on, and a lot of stuff is in the archives. One of my favorite places to go searching is in the patent office, because there are an amazing number of things that have been patented. Some of them are completely ludicrous, but other things are really very interesting, because you've got teams, you need to know the history a bit. But you've got teams of people who have huge experience, who've built the big airships, who've flown across the oceans and around the world and things. And they've come up with an idea, and their money's not there, or the technology's not there. They haven't quite got the means to build it, like they didn't have hydraulic power, for instance. And nowadays, so they just stuck a patent on it so that nobody else could use it. And it's still sleeping there. And those are loads of things that have never been tried that now are technically possible. And I'm very excited to dig up some of those. And then finally, in getting near the end of the list, my own area of interest, ground crew. There's a great deal of myth about how ground crews, huge ground crews. And a lot of those were solved. I mean, the R100 flew to Canada in 1930, and from the time it crossed the airfield boundary to the time it was securely moored on the mast took 27 minutes and 12 people. Well, for a thing that's the size of a supertanker, that's not bad, but everybody's forgotten it. And then the other thing is, where do you keep them? You need great sheds, a huge investment and all that sort of stuff. And now there's all health and safety and things like that. So those are just some of the topics. And then added to that, of course, is steampunk. Massive amount of young people playing with fantasy airships. So there's lots of areas.
I think we're going to ask Dr. Johannes Eising to talk about steampunk when he's on the panel, because we know it's a sensitive topic with him. But I'd like to come back to Alan, because I was a bit unfair in asking you to talk about the 9th of May when you didn't have a list of the topics in front of you. But not so much about the topics, but how do you see the debate going on the 9th of May? Do you think we're going to be able to attract people with a real interest? And before you answer that, I have been chatting on the live chat on Facebook with Toby Page and with Adrian Roberto Mandri, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Adrian. After you've spoken, Alan, I do want to come on to what they've said in the chat.
Cool, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to get back in on a couple of things about where we're going with the forum in the future. And one of the things to pick up is we're using the word airship a lot in this chat this afternoon. And in the association, we tend to use that as a shorthand because everybody understands it. But in fact, it's very inclusive. We are talking, whenever we say airship, about airships, hybrid air vehicles, aerostats, airship drones, and indeed any other kind of buoyant vehicle like flying sky cranes. So important to remember that one. I think the debate on the 9th is going to go really well because I think we've got the message out there that there's some interesting things to be talked about. But it's not just this first one of debunking the myths, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. We want to move on to the next debate, and we've already started to accumulate some topics for that around what is the best design of airships. Should you go for a semi-rigid or a full rigid? Around what are the best and most economic use cases for a modern airship. We are assembling that list already, and we want the help of our members to populate that list ready for the second forum. So yes, I think they're going to be very successful.
Alan, that's brilliant. Now, there have been some people listening, which is really good to know that we are not just talking to ourselves, but there are people out there. And Adrian Roberto Mandri, and again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, has said, do airships create more value as part of a hybrid system with sea freight connecting to ports and logistics/distribution centers, or as a standalone alternative to maritime shipping? Well, I'll start, and then I'd like a volunteer from the panel to help answer that question. The view within the airship community at the moment in terms of logistics airships, and this emerged, I think, out of a lot of the work done by Cargo Lifter before 2002, is that airships fill what we used to call a middle ground. They are slower than airplanes. They're faster than ships. They can carry more in bulk and weight than airplanes, but not as much as ships. But their real advantage over both types of logistics vehicle is that you don't have to do necessarily any form of load transfer. Now, I don't want to get into the debate that we'll have starting in May on the specifics of this, but I think, Adrian, if you join us then, you'll be able to contribute and hear more about this debate about the best way to use airships for logistics and how long and what is needed before airships can properly fill their legitimate role as logistics vehicles. And I know, Giles, I mean, you had, back in the Cargo Lifter days, grave concerns about the load exchange process. We don't need to get into that in detail now, but would any of the three of you like to comment on Adrian's question about the role of airships in logistics? Alan.
Yeah, I think airships can only exist in partnership with other forms of travel. If you look at the basic speed question, if you need to get something somewhere quickly, don't use an airship. So it's got to be a partnership. It's got to be a mixed economy. And the people who are talking knowledgeably about this, and the likes of Ocean Sky Cruises, for example, who've done papers on this, are all saying it's a mixed economy. Airships will work alongside other forms of transport and not seek to replace them.
Thank you very much, Alan. Any more comments from the panel on logistics airships potentially in the future? Giles.
Yes, I'm rather a skeptic on the carrying of cargo. I'm not an engineer, but all I can say is that from my study of history, no one's ever done it. No one's built freight carrying airships. So I'm just open-minded. as I say, there may be things we're waiting for, technology that we don't quite have yet. But yeah, show me.
Thank you very much. Martin, any thoughts on logistics airships?
Only maybe just to simplify it, as what's just been said, it's basically where the road stops. That's where you'd use the airship from, or where the port stops, or the railway line, or even the canal. It's where conventional transport stops, and then from there to a remote part where you need to transport something. I mean, think about that, not in competition with existing means of transport, because airships can't really compete if there's a reasonable road available. So think of it where the road stops, where you want to transport something to, and then we can have that debate about how we actually perform the transportation, the load exchange, as you said, on the 9th. But just think of it in those terms all the time.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's excellent. Just for completeness, Toby, thank you very much indeed, Toby Page, for answering my comment about the plan to offer members some sort of supernumerary ground crew opportunity. And I'll just read out for anybody who doesn't have access to the Facebook chat in this live what Toby said. Skyship Services are still happy to make it happen. It's a question of timing, when and where they are operating, and when and where the honorary ground crew might be available. They will endeavor to give us greater visibility on our future operations, on their future operations, to make it easier for us to plan such things. And that information we in Council will work with Skyship Services to make available to members as and when it comes. So one thing I'd like to emphasize is that to participate in these debates, you do not need to be a member of the Airship Association. Anybody can participate. You can send questions to press@airshipassociation.org. That's with a minus between airship and association. Or you can put a comment into the chat, and we'll try and pick up the comments in real time as they come. But anybody listening who's not a member of the Airship Association, please join. We would love you to come and join us. Become a member of the Airship Association. It doesn't cost a huge amount of money, and it will bring you benefits for the rest of your life. Do you think I'm overpromising? I don't think so. I've been a member for a very long time, and I love it. But also, we are endeavoring to reduce our average age. Giles and I are the older of the panelists today. Martin and Alan are young pups compared to us, but we need even younger people. We do have some young council members, at least 2 of whom will be on the panel next time, but we need more younger members. The association was formed in 1971, and of course the original batch of members are getting to an age now where they're probably not going to be hearing everything I'm saying at the moment. So we need to refresh our membership always, and so I encourage all of you to come and join us, contribute to the debate, both the live debates we're going to be having, our conventions, our lunches, our journal, and anybody can write a letter to the journal. Alan, do you want to talk a bit about letters and things like that in the journal?
Yes, thank you. We have a letters page. It's called Editor's Inbox, and I'm always happy to get communications from anyone who's read something in the magazine that they want to query or ask for more information about, or just plain disagree with. It tells you in the magazine where to send those letters. We will publish them, we will respond to them, and hopefully we'll generate a debate around some of the interesting questions.
Thank you for that, Alan. Adrian has just popped another comment into the chat. And just so that if you can't see the chat, Adrian says, Aeros Corporation is talking about a cargo airship for 66 tons in 2 years. Well, okay, I wish them all the very best of luck. I think most of us in the association with a long experience of working with the airship industry, or at least monitoring and following it, we have over the years seen many airship companies make pretty grand promises. And some of them deliver on those promises and some don't. And it's generally impossible to know which will be which. What I would say is that having worked for Cargo Lifter had a fantastic dream. We went a long way towards the initial stages of design and development, but then we ran out of money. And unfortunately, the amount of money that's been invested in airship development over the last 100 years is a fraction of what has been invested in heavier than air aircraft. There seems to be sometimes an assumption that at the end of the day, an airship is just a balloon, with a motor attached to it, and it's very simple technology. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. Airships have to be certified to the same exacting standards as all types of aircraft. And the shapes and the materials technology and the flight control systems and the weather monitoring systems and the ground handling systems, these are all important aspects for designers to take into account. And so whilst I wish Aeros all the very best, I will reserve judgment on all of these companies out there until they actually have something flying. But I hope they succeed. Giles, do you have any thoughts looking back over the last 30 years of airship developments that have come and gone? I mean, you and I worked together at Cargo Lifter for a while, but unfortunately it didn't come to anything.
Well, yes, indeed. I actually started working with gas balloons back in the 1960s. And one of my mentors was an old RAF wing commander who worked for parachute training and had a gas balloon pilot's license, Wing Commander Jerry Turnbull. And he used to say something that I've always remembered. He said, "I love it when people come to me with a new idea, because then I tell them why it didn't work the last time somebody tried it." And I'm afraid I'm rather of that age now. I watched Cargo Lifter, and I ended up getting a PhD from doing the research on Cargo Lifter, but I am rather skeptical about cargo carrying. I think airships have a lot of potential uses. As I say, I'm not an engineer, so I'm happy to be shown. And I think that the model airships that Martin uses have a great potential as a learning and a demonstrator of working out some of these problems. I think there's potential there.
We have another message in the chat, which I'll come back to, Martin, in just a moment. But and I hope I'm getting this right. Pei Pol says, "Hello, I am working on a dissertation focused on airships for cargo transport. I am currently looking into how noisy they are. Is there any information available on their noise levels?" Whether it's publicly available or not, I'm not sure. But Martin, do you have any knowledge of this? Or Giles, you put your hand up. Do you want to comment on it? Martin first, I think.
I think it'd be better to Giles to comment on this. He's worked with engineers and Cargo Lifter in the past on how noisy the engines would or not be at the case. But I certainly listen to, how airships fly over my head and they're not that noisy.
Well, what's often forgotten is that a large number of airships in recent years, certainly this century, have been used for advertising. And so you certainly don't want an airship that flies silently overhead, because nobody will look up at it. So in some senses, they've actually been deliberately noisy.
Yes, okay, granted. But I'll quote another bit of work that I was involved with when I was running an airship program for the British Ministry of Defence. We did a lot of research on the noise footprint of the Skyship 600 because it was our intention to use it as a means of covert surveillance. And we concluded that if it was above about 3,500 to 4,000 feet above the ground, you wouldn't hear it. And so I think there has been some work done, PayPal, on the noise signature of airships. Whether it's in the public domain or not, I'm not sure. But I think I would suggest it's worth thinking of them in the same way as you would think of a light aircraft. They're not like airliners, they don't generally have jets. They're gradually becoming quieter as they transition to electric propulsion. but at the moment they're sort of like a propeller aeroplane. I also have a comment here from Alistair Reed. Alistair, you're watching live on Facebook. I'm very glad to hear it. It's a long time since we've seen each other, and I hope you'll come and join us at our lunch here so we can have a longer chat. But you're not seeing any of the comments. Well, I've seen your comment, and I'm assuming you've seen your comment. So maybe that's changed. But if people can't see the comments, we'll work on it for next time so that by the 9th of May, we have a proper ability to have comments visible to everybody. And I'll just repeat that the recording of this live event will be published for other people to see in due course. So I still have to be careful what I say, as do we all. But I think we're coming to that time when we should begin to wrap things up. We've been going for a little over an hour. So I'm going to ask each panelist to give their final thoughts on what we've been discussing today, what's coming up in the future, what we can expect on the 9th of May, and why would you recommend people should join the Airship Association? Giles.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to the debate. I mean, it'd be very interesting to hear the questions that we get and whether we can lay some of the myths and misunderstandings to rest and also look to some of the potentials in the future. I think it's going to be very exciting.
Thank you very much. Martin.
Yes, well, following on from what you said a few minutes ago about what's happened to the past, say with Cargo Lifter, I think one of the great advantages of becoming a member of the Airship Association is we do have an archive, not just of the journal, but previous conventions and other publications that could be very useful for anyone who's looking at the potential of airships. And as Giles has said, what's worked in the past and what hasn't worked in the past. And also, you know, from purely, say, like a financial perspective, how companies have struggled to raise money, etc., as you said, Gregory, in the past. So there's a good history there, a lot of lessons learned. So please, join the Airship Association. We can provide you some useful information. And yes, as Giles said, I'm looking forward to the debates on the 9th of May to discuss some of these topics, etc.
Thank you very much, Martin. Alan.
I think this is one of the most exciting times to be involved in anything connected with lighter than air. We've got a huge range of members now in the organisation, and they run from a small Finnish company who are operating autonomous surveillance airships in Finland, patrolling their border, through to the likes of LTA Research in America, who are currently test flying the world's largest airship, the world's largest air vehicle. And some of the stuff that they're coming back with is just brilliant, and it's progressing the whole lighter than air sector forward. And then there's companies who are daring to push it even beyond that. There's one company in America who are trying to come up with vacuum cells rather than lifting gases. And I think that's really exciting. So get involved, find out what's happening and what you'll be seeing flying in the skies in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. And I've had one additional comment from Alistair Reed, a long-time proponent of airships, who has suggested 2 additional topics for future debates, the certification of airships. And we sort of touched on that at the beginning with the Airship Association's involvement in the drafting of transport airship requirements. But it's a really important topic because nothing can fly unless it complies with rules and regulations for flight. And those rules and regulations don't necessarily lend themselves to airship operations. And so we as a community need to influence that. And the second topic he's referred to is autopilot systems for airships. I think that's a very good topic. And in addition, I'd like to add something to the list of topics to debate, which is pilot selection and training, because I think that's something that is often overlooked, in that just because you can fly an airplane, it doesn't actually mean you can fly an airship. And that is in some way related to autopilots, because of course the autopilot is fulfilling the function of a pilot whilst it's in use. So listen, perhaps if Dean, you could bring us all up onto the screen whilst I conclude what we're going to be saying today. I'd like to thank all of the members of the panel for participating today. I think this has been quite an educational experience for us in the Airship Association. It's not something we've ever done before. I'd also like to offer a special thanks to Dean Arnett and his company Aona Digital for facilitating this, encouraging this, and leading all of the efforts that have resulted in this live debate and in the debate we're going to have on the 9th of May. So, Dean, thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. To our audience, both the live audience who are listening now, thank you very much for taking the time out of your weekend to join us. And to the audience who will hear this after the event, I would just emphasize, feel free to email in any questions or topics you want us to cover in future debates. Do consider becoming a member of the Airship Association, and we look forward to seeing you not only here on Facebook, but also on LinkedIn, maybe on X and other platforms, maybe on our website, as we move forward with this series of live debates. Thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to seeing you all and more of you on the 9th of May.